Relax. I just used your ATM card for household stuff. My brother laughed into the phone. Why are you always so dramatic? The word dramatic landed like a slap. There are moments when your body reacts before your mind does. My fingers went cold. My chest tightened. And something deep inside me, something that had been quiet for years, opened its eyes. People think betrayal is loud. Screaming. Crying. Doors slamming. But the worst betrayals arrive softly. Smiling. Familiar. Wearing a voice you've trusted your whole life. Hey everyone. My name is Marissa Cole. I'm 31 years old. And I learned that night that silence can be more dangerous than rage. I was sitting at my small kitchen table, the one with a wobbling leg I never fixed because I told myself I'd replace it, one day. The overhead light flickered. My phone lay face up beside a half-cold cup of tea. Outside, the city hummed like nothing in the world was wrong. My brother Evan had called an hour earlier. Said he was short on cash. Said it was just for a few things. Said he'd return it by morning. He always said things like that. And somehow I always believed him. I opened my banking app. At first, nothing loaded. Just a spinning circle. Then the numbers appeared. $3,300. Balance. 17 cents. I stared at the screen, waiting for my eyes to adjust. Waiting for the numbers to rearrange themselves into something less cruel. They didn't. Transaction after transaction filled the screen. Electronics store. Boutique. Premium kids outlet. And there it was, the picture forming slowly, painfully clear. This wasn't groceries. This wasn't household stuff. This was a shopping spree. For his golden child. His 8-year-old daughter. The child who already had more than I'd ever been given. A brand new iPad. Expensive toys wrapped in bright paper and praise. Love measured in receipts, with my name attached to every one of them. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even call him back. I sat there perfectly still, listening to the refrigerator hum, feeling something inside me harden, not into anger but into clarity. 12 hours passed like a held breath. By morning, Evan would wake up thinking he'd gotten away with it. He had no idea that while he slept I was already moving. Quietly. Precisely. And by the time the sun rose, my brother would be the one screaming. The sky outside my window was still dark when I stood up from that chair. Not dramatic dark. Just that heavy early morning quiet where the world feels paused, like it's waiting to see what you'll do next. I washed my mug. Fully. Dried it. Fully. Every movement measured. I checked the transactions again, this time zooming in, reading timestamps. Evan hadn't even spaced them out. He'd gone store to store like a kid let loose in a candy aisle, confident the bill would vanish behind the word family. That was his favorite word. Family helps family. Family doesn't ask questions. Family doesn't say no. I opened my laptop and pulled up old messages. Screenshots I'd never deleted. Requests. Excuses. I'll pay you back Friday. Just this once. You know it's for her. Always her. His daughter. The golden one. The miracle child who could do no wrong and apparently deserved everything. Even my security. My rent was due in 4 days. My savings were gone. And he knew that. That realization settled deeper than the missing money. This wasn't carelessness. This was calculated comfort. He'd taken because he was sure I'd swallow it. As I always had. My phone buzzed. A text from Evan. She loved the iPad smiling face with heart eyes. You should have seen her face. Worth it. Worth it. I smiled for the first time that night. Not because it was funny, but because something inside me finally snapped into place. I didn't reply. Instead, I logged into my bank's fraud portal. Then my credit monitoring account. Then something else. Something Evan never knew existed because he never listened when I talked about my job. Paperwork. Digital trails. Authorization logs. By the time the first hint of dawn touched the curtains, I had everything I needed lined up neatly in front of me. Evan was still asleep, dreaming of his perfect morning. He didn't know that when he woke up his world would start shrinking. And mine finally wouldn't. The sun was barely up when my phone started buzzing again. Evan. I let it ring. Once. Twice. Then stop. I imagined him standing in his kitchen, coffee halfway poured, confidence still intact. He wouldn't have checked his bank yet. Men like Evan never check until something feels off. I opened my email instead. There it was, Confirmation from the bank. Fraud claim received. Temporary account freeze in progress. Not punishment. Procedure. I followed it with the credit card company. Same calm language. Same clean steps. I wasn't accusing. I was documenting. The truth has a way of sounding polite when it's written down. My phone buzzed again. A text this time. Hey, weird question. Did you mess with your account? I pictured his voice cracking just a little as he typed that. The first hairline fracture in his certainty. I didn't answer. I packed my bag for work, hands steady. Outside, the air smelled like wet pavement and early buses. Ordinary life moving forward, while Evan started stalling. At a red light, another message came through. Marissa, my card just got declined. Can you call me? Declined. That word tasted different when it wasn't mine. I pulled into the parking lot and sat there for a moment longer than necessary. My reflection stared back at me through the windshield. Eyes tired, jaw set, shoulders squared in a way they'd never been before. I typed one sentence. I noticed unauthorized charges. I'm handling it through the bank. 3 minutes passed. Then the calls started. Back to back. Desperate. Loud even through silence. And somewhere between the fourth and fifth missed call I felt it, the shift. Evan finally understood. This wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a consequence. If this ever happened to you, say, same in the comments. By noon the story had already changed. Not the truth, the version Evan was telling. My phone lit up with a call from my mother. I let it go to voicemail. Then another from my aunt. Then a text from my cousin I barely spoke to anymore. Why are you doing this to Evan? He's under so much stress. She's just a child, Marissa. I stared at the messages, feeling that old, familiar pressure. The one that always tried to fold me back into place. The role of the reasonable one. The forgiving one. The one who smooths things over so everyone else can stay comfortable. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the transaction list to myself again. Screenshots. Time stamps. Store names. Total amounts. Cold facts. No emotion. Just truth laid out clean and undeniable. Evan called again. This time his voice was different. Lower, tighter, threaded with something new. Fear. They froze the refund too, he said. I can't access anything. I've got bills. You've gone too far. Too far. Thought about my rent. My savings. The nights I'd skip things I needed so he could have what he wanted. I didn't go anywhere, I said. I stayed exactly where you left me. He went quiet. Then softly, almost pleading, just tell them it was a misunderstanding. There was the ask. The moment he expected me to step in and erase consequences like I always had. I closed my eyes. No, I said. One word. Steady. Final. On the other end of the line something cracked. Not loudly. Just enough for me to hear it. And for the first time, Evan realized this wasn't a phase. It was a boundary. The fallout didn't explode. It spread. By evening, Evan had stopped calling and started spiraling. I could tell by the silence. The kind that's too deliberate, too rehearsed. The calm before people change tactics. Then the email came. Not from him. From his wife. It was polite. Careful. Every sentence wrapped in softness, like apologies cushioned to land without weight. We didn't realize it would affect you like this. Evan was just trying to make our daughter happy. Can't we handle this privately? Privately. Quietly. So nothing would stick. I read it twice, then once more, slower. Not a single sorry. Not a single acknowledgement of what was taken. Only concern for how uncomfortable the consequences had become. I replied with one attachment. The full transaction report. No commentary. No accusations. Just facts. 10 minutes later, Evan called again. This time he was shouting before I even answered. Do you know what you've done? He yelled. They're asking for explanations. They want receipts. I look like a criminal. I waited until he ran out of breath. You are explaining, I said calmly. That's all that's happening. He laughed, then sharp panicked. You always hated how much everyone loves her. Admit it. That one hit. Because it was easier for him to believe I was jealous than to accept he'd crossed a line. I lowered my voice. This isn't about your daughter. It's about you thinking my life was expendable. Silence. Real silence. When he spoke again, it wasn't anger. It was dread. Please, he said. Fix this. I looked out my window at the darkening sky and felt something settle in my chest. I already did. The morning Evan finally showed up at my door, I was already dressed. Not rushed. Not shaken. Just ready. He stood there with dark circles under his eyes, keys clenched in his fist like a lifeline. His shoulders were slumped in a way I'd never seen before. No swagger, no entitlement. Just a man realizing the ground beneath him wasn't solid anymore. They're reversing the charges, he said, voice raw. But they flagged my accounts. I can't open a new one. My credit, it's wrecked. I didn't move aside to let him in. That happens, I said evenly. When money disappears. He swallowed. Looked past me into my apartment. The small, quiet space he'd always dismissed as temporary. Inferior. Not worth respecting. I'll pay you back, he said quickly. Every dollar. I swear. I studied his face. For the first time he wasn't bargaining from power. He was pleading from loss. I know, I replied. That seemed to confuse him. You know. Yes, I said. Because the repayment plan is already set. The bank handled it. His mouth opened. Closed. They're garnishing refunds, I continued. Bonuses. Any incoming lump sums. Automatically. No more, eventually. His knees buckled slightly. He reached for the doorframe. You didn't have to destroy me, he whispered. I met his eyes. I didn't, I said. I just stopped protecting you from yourself. Behind him a delivery truck rolled by. A child's laughter echoed faintly from somewhere down the street. Life going on. Evan stood there, finally understanding what it costs when someone decides they're done being silent. And I closed the door, softly, on the old version of us. By the next morning, the screaming wasn't coming from Evan anymore. It was coming from the space he'd lost. The family group chat went quiet. Not because they understood, but because there was nothing left to argue. The money trail was documented. The repayment was automated. The story had stopped being emotional and started being factual. Facts don't bend. Evan didn't call again. Neither did anyone else. A week later, my account balance looked normal again. Not rich. Not overflowing. Just mine. Every dollar back where it belonged. Every line item corrected. Clean. I expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt light. I realized something while standing in line at the bank. Sun pouring through the glass doors. The world moving around me like nothing monumental had happened. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just restores balance. Evan still buys his daughter gifts. Just not with my name attached to them. Not with my safety on the line. He learned too late that love paid for with someone else's silence is theft. As for me, I stopped explaining myself. No more long messages. No more softening my boundaries. No more shrinking to keep others comfortable. That quiet action I took, it didn't just empty his confidence. It returned my voice. I walked out of the bank, shoulders back, breath steady, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not revenge. Control.